Hi, my name's John, and we'll be discussing a question which might ruffle a few feathers just for asking whether it is possible to be both rich and just in the world today. We're coming at the question from the Christian perspective, and I think it is perhaps to the Christian to which the question is the greatest conundrum. For Christ has commanded us to love neighbour as self, which should mean wanting what's better for one's neighbour, just as one desires what is better for oneself. And to be honest, I'll let you know right away that I'm very doubtful that the answer is an affirmative to the proposition. With the state the world is in, it needs all the giving that people can give. Now, one question is, what is it to be just? I think simply, it's to support the cause of the needy. At least I think that is the biblical answer. And I think Job would agree with me. Here's a citation from Job 29:12 to 16. I delivered the poor who cried, and orphan who had no helper. The blessing of the wretched came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was a father to the needy, and I championed the cause of the stranger. So I think without getting into a complex Socratic dialogue about what is justice, we could probably agree that the just man is the man who helps the person in need, who clothes the naked, feeds the hungry, gives shelter to the homeless, etc. Now, another question you might raise is what does it mean to be rich? What is rich? Who is rich? If one man has $5 and I have $20, does that make me rich? But if another man has $50, does that make me with my $20 poor? We might look at it relativistically like that, and even tell ourselves not to worry if we aren't giving more than we are already giving, even if we can give more, because there are far richer people in the world than us who ought to be giving when they have who ought to be giving up what they have to help others. Isn't it up to the richest to help the needy the most? And it is true, the richest should give, and they should give generously. But since, as the world has world over proven, that the rich cling to their selfishness, we cannot rely on the richest people in the world to give to the starving and the needy, while we keep hold of our wealth, even if it is comparatively minuscule compared to the richest people in the world. I think we might be able to say if we have more than we need, we can afford to give, always. Here is a quote from C.S. Lewis. I do not believe one can settle how much we ought to give. I'm afraid that the only safe rule is to give more than we can spare. In other words, if our expenditure on comforts, luxuries, amusements, etc., is up to the standard common among those with the same income as our own, we are probably giving away too little. If our charities do not at all pinch or hamper us, I should say they are too small. There ought to be things we should like to do and cannot do because our charitable expenditure excludes them. What about things like savings, we might ask C.S. Lewis. Is it okay to have them? Before we ponder that a bit more, I would like to give the thrust of Peter Singer's argument from his famous 1971 essay, Famine, Affluence, Morality. This summary comes straight from Wikipedia. First point, suffering and death from lack of food, shelter, and medical care are bad. Second point, if it is in our power to prevent something bad from happening without thereby sacrificing anything of comparable moral importance, then we ought morally to do it. Third point, it makes no moral difference whether the person I can help is a neighbour's child 10 yards from me, a Bengali whose name I shall never know, 10,000 miles away. Fourth point, the principle makes no distinction between cases in which I'm the only person who could possibly do anything and cases in which I'm just one among millions in the same position. The question arises then, given that much of the world is still in the grip of poverty, sickness, and malnutrition since the time Singer wrote the paper, is it justifiable to have savings when the money in a person's savings account could go immediately towards saving a human life, even if that person saved is 10,000 miles away and will never see them? Is it more important that if a young person had, say, 20 grand saved up that is going towards a house deposit, would it be more important that that money goes towards saving lives in immediate need in desperate parts of the world? To me, it seems like the just person would forsake the house deposit and save the lives. We might say, well, what if I have savings for in case I or a family member gets sick and I need treatment? The problem with that argument, of course, is that there are people currently sick who need treatment now, so it doesn't seem just to save one's money in the just in case I need it instead. even if it seems natural to want to preserve wealth that could help us should we meet with misfortune. Of course, we need some savings just to buy the basics to pay for utilities and the like. And if we have a family and children that need things like school clothing, books, and all the necessities of children, we can deem that a certain amount of savings is just to cover nearby future costs, things we will need. Of course, the imperative word there being need rather than want. And in our saving for a family, we would still do well to recall Tobit's words of instruction to his son: "Give away all your surplus as alms, and do not let your eye grudge your giving of alms." That's Tobit 4, verse 16, the Deuterocanonical book. Although we might recall that Zacchaeus was commended for giving only half his wealth to the poor, and also repaying fourfold to those he cheated. But then, on the other hand, the young ruler was commanded to give away all his wealth and possessions and follow Jesus. So how do we tell if we are a rich young ruler or a Zacchaeus? I don't know how to answer that question other than suggesting that one pray and use discernment. I would think, however, that if one is a Zacchaeus, doesn't mean half your money goes to the poor and then the other half goes into squandering it on luxuries and frivolities. Of course, we are always to be a good and wise steward of the money that heaven has charged to be in our ownership. Now, here's a conversation I wrote a while ago that tries to make some way towards suggesting a solution, if you would entertain me. Speaker 1. Can't all the billionaires put their heads together and figure out how to end all world hunger? Speaker 2. They could do chat, but it's no use depending on what the world's most wealthy men are rendering. Otherwise it would have been solved by now. And it's not all that hard. I'll tell you how, if I were them. Build shelters and food banks in every place, but their importance outranks all other matters that do possibly matter. Keep them well stocked, have plenty of clean water available at all times for those who are thirsty. That's the least the poor deserve for courtesy. Establish farms that are nearby all towns. Even if they have to take out big loans, devoting them to feeding all the poor, who are right now at their neediest implore, to be fed by the nations of the earth rather than struggle suffering in harsh dearth. If land nearby a town cannot be cultivated, have a steady supply of food created. That can keep all the needy stocked with their need at all times. Their neighbours, aren't we to feed them, clothe them, shelter them too, as we can? And the world certainly can, my good man. No matter if the richest bank accounts must be depleted. In God's eyes, what counts is justice divvied out and showing mercy. And he has left that partly to our agency. That love for other may be our true ardency. So if a person's hungry, cold, and thirsty, it's up to those with store to give him store, not leave him at his most desperate implore. One might say there's the problem of logistics. That's the sort of excuse, but that sort of excuse completely ticks me off. Contact the charities, explain that one intends to put an end to the pain of all world hunger, come together with them. They are bound to have some solutions, some, for all the problems of each one of their causes. They can be solved with such wealthy resources, and their intention should be to permanently improve the poor's lives, and they should do gladly. So to all they help, they should give a Bible and tell the saving message of the gospel. Since I do imagine none of them Christian, they will first need to be converted from sin, then they'll be motivated to assist, poor even if all their funds are risked. Assist the poor even if all their funds are risked. Speaker 1. So to help the poor, we should proselytise to the rich. I'm sure that wouldn't work without a hitch. Speaker 2. Let's not depend upon them then, my friend, when their own giving can give a good end. And that's about all I've got. It's a hard and troubling question. It seems like if we should be just and help the needy in the world that might involve living a life bereft of luxuries. My agreement is with Peter Singer, in that there is an onus upon the affluent to devote large amounts of their resources to humanitarian projects. And if we should combine that with the C.S. Lewis citation, they should give until it pinches or hampers themselves. Perhaps we could say no one deserves to be rich until all the world's population has the basic necessities covered. After that's done, then we might justify the excess being in our bank accounts. Because honestly, I'm not sure the proposition can be justified as the state the world is in right now. But I charge myself as much as anyone else to give. And yes, I'm probably falling short in that regard as much as a lot of other people, but I'm trying to improve. Do you have any thoughts on the topic yourself? Post a comment below. I think it's a discussion that needs to be had more frequently. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like my video.